Good day to all of my new listeners. I'm Xueli Ebbing. I'm an international model and goodwill ambassador for UNESCO. I'm doing this podcast series to raise awareness on albinism. In those podcast series, I talk with young persons with albinism to find out more about their daily lives and the differences between countries. This conversation is with Jia Li from the USA. Hi, Jia Li. Nice to meet you. Could you briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, like she said, my name is Jia Li. I live in Pennsylvania, and I'm currently a sophomore at Drexel University, majoring in nursing, minoring in epidemiology. I love healthcare. I love my hobbies. I love to dance and read. And I also just became an emergency medical technician, so I love volunteering and doing that as well.
Wow, congratulations. Why did you start helping people?
So I always loved healthcare ever since I was like a little kid. I used to always watch documentaries on the TV of like pediatric healthcare and surgeries, and my mom was always grossed out. I just always had an affinity towards it. And I also have been helped a lot throughout my life. I've had several eye surgeries, and I've had like really good experiences with healthcare providers. So I wanted to give back in that sense as well.
How old were you when you started to realize that you want to work in the healthcare system?
I was really young, like I previously mentioned. I always just had an affinity towards it. I just love like taking care of like babies or taking care of other people who are sick. Blood and guts never like scared me or threw me put me away from the field. So ever since I can remember, basically like 4 or 5, I started like really playing doctor and nurse with my friends.
I see that you have albinism. How does albinism affect your work or your daily life?
So it affects it a lot. Like I feel like everyone with albinism, uh, it impacts it a lot. It's definitely a big part of who I am, my identity in the healthcare field. It's particularly very difficult. Um, there's a lot at stake. You're going to be in charge of other people's lives, and there's a lot of litigation in healthcare. So there's a lot of room for errors, and there's a lot of room for ableism to blame mistakes on visual acuities. So I take this all in caution when going into the field. I'm aware of the risks, but I'm really passionate about it, so I'm willing to kind of like brave the storm, so to speak. But it's been very challenging through like just getting my emergency medical certificate, and through I've only been in nursing school for 1 year so far, but it's been a lot of adaptations. It's been a lot of educating people and finding the right assistive technology. I'm still in the learning process, and there's still a lot of things that I still have to figure out vision wise, and there may be some things that are just not safe for me to do, and I'm just hoping that I educate people and that I will be able to find employment and do my dream job.
And what is your dream job?
My dream job is just taking care of people in healthcare. I don't really know what direction I'm gonna go yet. I'm thinking about going to get my MD after my nursing graduation.
Are your peers helping you with, for example, if you do not understand it sometimes in the class, are your peers helping you to understand it more? For example, sometimes read a text for you, or is it all you?
So my parents help me emotionally and financially, and they're a big support system, but I do not do schoolwork with them. I do my classwork all independently.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. So, your dream job is helping people. You are also a dancer, I saw. Do you think with dancing and combining it with your work as a nurse, do you think that those two can help people if you combine those two hobbies?
I definitely think it could make an impact on people. You have to deal with like it considering the specialty you go into, it's a lot of like emotional, it takes an emotional toll. You see people at their worst all the time. So I definitely think it could be beneficial to combine the two. I haven't danced for a long time. Ever since I entered college, it's been so rigorous academically that I haven't had the time. But dance is a really big part of my life, and it has helped me get through a lot of my hard times. So I'm definitely going to try to continue my hobby. Now, hopefully, in the upcoming school year, where I'll have more time to do so.
You are talking about hard times. Can you please explain a little more about your hard times?
Yeah, so growing up, I live in a very rural area, and there's wasn't really a lot of understanding about albinism. The school system I grew up in was kind of closed-minded about visual impairment is not very common around here. Oh, well, not very common in general, I should say. Um, I faced a lot of discrimination and bullying uh throughout middle school mostly, and it was very hard at times, and just it just like also helped dance helped me cope with just different stressors in life. A teacher like wasn't being accommodating, or if somebody made a an ignorant comment about my albinism, or somebody shouted to me at in like the Walmart parking lot something obscene. It helped like kind of just it just helped me forget about the school day for that brief period of time that I was dancing.
I'm sorry to hear that you were bullied and discriminated against. Do you think this happened to more of your peers, or were you the only one who was discriminated against?
So for middle school, I went to a charter school that only had it was unique. It only had 100 students from 6th to 12th grade. So bullies will be like everyone around them, but I don't remember events or times where I remember like seeing bullying happen to others. I'm not saying that it didn't happen to other people. I think I was probably like more just being aware of like myself and what was happening to me at the time, that I couldn't pay attention to per se like the bullying that could have been going on to others.
How did you react to your own bullies?
Well, for a long time, I didn't have great coping strategies. I came home really upset, crying. I got pretty sad at times. But now I feel like I've gotten a lot more confident ever since going away to college, and the biggest lesson that I learned is really you can't be everyone's friend. You can't please everybody, and that was really important because I was always the type of person that was very hard on myself. I wanted to make everyone smile. I wanted to be everyone's friend, and just the reality of life is you can't do that. So I wish I could go back and tell my younger self that.
Yeah, I think I also experienced that same feeling that you want to please everyone. And yeah, the world is about smiles, but now when you get older, you start to realize what life is really, yeah, that life is really that dangerous big world you have to survive in. There are also good things in life, but also you have to survive in life. It's also I myself discover that I was very different in a very young age. When did you discover that you were different?
Oh, this is very interesting as well because I in middle school discover it a little bit more but I I like feel like I was in I a little bit of denial, I guess is the right word. Denial about my condition. I did know I was different. I did discover I was different from a pretty young age. I didn't really acknowledge it at all until I was a junior in high school. And I felt like that was very purposeful, like subconsciously purposeful, because I didn't want to think I was different. I was raised that, oh, by my parents. My parents never shielded me from anything, but I just didn't want to hear it. They were like, oh, you could do everything anyone else can do, but my mom did explain, like, you have this condition, you are visually impaired, but it never it didn't click for me. It just didn't click until like junior year that, like, oh, I like this is a big deal kind of type of thing.
Do you mind to be different now?
I really like having albinism and having kind of like a different perspective. It gives me a really different perspective on life, and it's given me a lot of passion for helping others and advocating for disability rights and human rights in general. So, no, I do not mind it. I actually wouldn't have it any other way, even though it does present many challenges. It's not the glorious path that a lot of able-bodied people imagine having a disability to be. There's hard days where I'm like, oh, I wish I could just be like quote unquote normal. But overall, I realized very quickly that I like my unique standpoint in life and the compassion and the person that it's made me in general.
So, do you experience difficulties in daily life?
I feel like disability rights are often overshadowed and not really talked about by the public, and I think it's so important to put disability rights at more of the forefront of human rights movements, because there are a lot of people who struggle. Like the most difficult thing about being a disabled person, I would say, in the United States at least, is just the lack of understanding of what disability is, the differences, the disability culture.
Wow. How do you say to people that, like, you do not have to cuddle me or take care of me every step of the way?
So I've gotten a lot better at advocating for myself in the recent years, like I previously mentioned. Just I always try to be, I feel like everyone with albinism that I've talked to and everyone with a disability in general has a different approach to telling people their needs. I try to be as friendly as possible and educate others.
Plus, blind people can do a lot of stuff. I mean, I've met also blind athletes, there's a blind doctor, blind judge. So, people who are blind can do things. And please, when you see someone with a white cane, no matter what, he's blind or he, she, they are blind or are not blind, don't grab them, because it's very scary that someone is approaching behind your back and it's like grabbing you. That's very scary. I experienced that quite a lot. Also, another question about back to your origin, because you are from Chinese descent, like me. You have been adopted, but do you feel yourself Chinese or American?
I feel both. I'm very in touch with my Chinese culture. I'm very thankful to my parents because they've always encouraged me to keep my Chinese roots. So I always identified as Chinese American.
So you said you were in touch with your Chinese culture. Um, do you learn Chinese?
I know a little bit of Chinese, and the Chinese that I do know, I feel like I have an atrocious accent, but I do know a little bit of Chinese. I want to learn more. I've never been a language person. It's just really difficult for me to find time to, and it's hard to speak and practice when you have no one else to kind of speak to.
Do you also love Chinese food?
I am obsessed. Me and my friends joke around with me all the time. Like, I've never seen somebody like love Asian food so much. And I'm like, or love Chinese food so much. And I'm like, for me, it's not Chinese food or Asian food. It's just like food. I love that Philadelphia has a Chinatown, so I am constantly in Chinatown, like, whenever I have, like, extra time from, like, my classes, I'm always going down to Chinatown and eating and getting bubble tea and going to the market to get, some dumplings or my favorite Chinese, other Chinese, like, authentic Chinese foods and stuff, yeah, so I love Philadelphia Chinatown.
I love that you love food, because I like to eat baozi. It's like a Chinese bread, and it's so delicious. And my mom says, like, surely if you're gonna eat more baozi, you're gonna change in one. Do you also did your mother also say the same thing? If you're gonna eat more Chinese food, you eventually change in the Chinese food?
Yes, I think I've heard that so many times. Oh my gosh. Yeah, everyone who knows me knows that I my favorite thing to do is eat. I love going out to different ramen or Chinese restaurants, and also everyone tease me because they're like, "How are you like so tiny? You're always eating." And I don't know. I just eating is like my favorite one of my favorite de-stressors, especially good, authentic Chinese food.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe when I visit you, we can eat Chinese food.
Yes, you have to give me some new suggestions, and I'll show you um, the stuff that I eat as well.
I really like lo mai kai.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's like rice in a leaf, and it's very hot, but it's very delicious.
Oh, I think I know
And
what you're talking about. Yes, I love that too.
my children will look more Chinese, um, than I will be if I were to marry, for example, a Dutch man. My children would look more Chinese. If you plan to have children, would it be strange that they look more Chinese than you?
I always felt weird because in Chinatown or like with my Chinese friends, they used to introduce me to their other friends and be like, "Oh, like she's Chinese, she was adopted from China." They wouldn't believe her, especially like if I had my sunglasses on and they can see like the features around my eyes. That has been difficult. I felt like I never could fit entirely in the Chinese culture because I know like albinism is sometimes even looked upon like as a curse in China. It's just not it like any differences are not very well taken in the Chinese culture. So it's been difficult, but if I ever do have kids and they look like quote unquote like normal Chinese with black hair and uh a darker skin tone, I feel like I wouldn't I would just love them for however they look or who they are. I would um I probably would think that they're the most gorgeous thing in the world. I'm sure every parent does, but I wouldn't care like how like Chinese they looked, or like it definitely also would have to do a lot with the partner I decide to have kids with, which I'm not there yet. But yeah, that has been difficult.
But could you imagine that a parent wants to abandon their child?
In China used to be because of the one child policy. Um, and there's also different cultural norms. Like, for example, boys are financially responsible for their parents, whereas girls don't have that responsibility. So a lot of families will give up girls for adoption before they give up their boys for adoption. And I disability in general in the Chinese culture is just not very widely accepted, which is really sad. And I hope things get better.
Yeah, I think so as well. People in some countries, for example, so some African countries, for example, in Tanzania and Malawi, get discriminated against, even hunted down for the bones, because they the witch doctors believe that the persons with albinism contain magic in their bones, which is of course not true. It's a vicious lie. What do you think about this, and what can we do to prevent such attacks happening again?
I think it's atrocious what's going on. There. I want to do everything I can to support and raise awareness for what is happening. I'd like to shout out my mom purchases soaps from Tanzania, this woman who's created a safe haven for children with albinism so they do not get hunted down. The soap brand is Mama Monsungu. They make the the women with albinism make different soap. So we buy soaps from them every single month to support what she is doing for the women and children with albinism over there in Tanzania. That is one way that people can support, is to help the efforts that are already going on there, and hopefully bring an end to all the misinformation and stigma around the condition.
What do you want to say to young children who are listening, or young teens who are listening to this podcast?
I would like to say never be afraid to be yourself. I feel like that's more easier said than done. What I'm trying to say essentially is don't have to be embarrassed of the the differences you have, whether it doesn't have to be your albinism or your visual impairment. It could be anything. You may like giraffes and the other kids like zebras. Don't shy away from that, and don't be ashamed of who you are, because it will end up being an advantage point in the future. It just it a lot of time just takes time to find your niche, find the people that and the resources so you can grow, and people that accept you for who you are, because people who don't aren't meant to be in your life.
Wow, thank you for your beautiful message. And Jali, thank you for your time. Thank you to all our listeners for their time. If you have any questions, please write a comment in the comment section down below. Be kind and please respect us. Thank you.